Adobe just released a new update to Lightroom Classic, and one of the new features actually blew my mind. This is going to change everything about your workflow when editing photos. So let's jump in and I will walk you through everything you need to know about this new game-changing tool. If you've ever had to deal with photos that suffer from excessive noise, that's that grainy texture that you get in the background when you either have to brighten dark photos or if you just shoot at a high ISO, well, Adobe's made this infinitely easier to clean up with a new AI-powered denoise feature. I'm going to show you some actual examples of how this has already completely changed some of my photos. And I'll even do a side-by-side comparison to see how Lightroom stacks up against a product like Topaz Denoise AI. But first, let's take a look at the actual release notes. All right, so here are the release notes for the April 2023 version 12.3 release of Lightroom Classic. So this talks about the new feature where you can easily remove noise from images using AI-powered denoise. So using artificial intelligence, Lightroom Classic can now efficiently remove noise from bare or X-trans raw images while preserving all the finer details. So basically what this is saying is this is raw images only. This is not going to be working for things like JPEGs or TIFFs or files that you might import over from Photoshop. So it's specific to raw images. We'll jump in the system in a second and take a closer look at the actual features, but this now lives in this detail section where you normally could do sharpening and noise reduction before. Now there's this new button that you can just press and it triggers the denoise process. So it also has a preview window that it shows you here. There is a slider that you can choose when you selected this denoise feature. So you can actually choose up to 100 or down to 1 is the minimum. So you do have an option of kind of choosing different levels of denoise that you do want to apply to the image. There's a preview window over here where you can actually press and hold down to see the before and after of how much the denoise is actually changing the image, which is what they point out here in point number 4. You can also choose to create a stack. So that way, when it creates that new image, which is going to be a DNG file, it'll create those right next to each other in a stack. So that way you don't lose where it is, as kind of compared to the original one. And the last few notes that it points out here is, again, denoise can only run on raw images. That's something we already talked about. It also recommends that you run denoise on your image before applying other tools. So do this before adding other edits to it. You can only choose between denoise and super resolution, so you can't use both of those features when processing files here. You can do the raw details and then add denoise, but you can't do denoise and super resolution. And then lastly, denoise is a GPU intensive feature, therefore it recommends a faster computer for this. So it does take about maybe 30 seconds or so for me to run through this. My computer's not super fast, but if you've got a computer that's more built for processing things like this, it should go pretty quickly. So now let's jump over into Lightroom and take a look at some examples. Now this first one is a picture of a bird that I took last spring. Now if you zoom in, we can take a look and see this is pretty grainy. There's quite a bit of noise in this photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do any edits to it to start. I do want to scroll down here to find the new section. And again, it's in the details section here. So you'll see there's a noise reduction option that now shows up right here. So all you need to do is click on denoise. This preview window pops up. You can see my slider is already up at 100, but you can slide this to your liking. If you go all the way down, you can see it's minimal change. If you slide it all the way up, you can see it's done quite a bit. Again, if you press down here, you can see the kind of before and after of without the enhance and now with it. So you can see just from this preview, it does quite a bit. Again, you can't choose the super resolution while this is selected. If you wanted to do that, you'd have to go in and choose that separately. You can only do one or the other. However, the raw details is kind of automatically selected when you do this denoise. It says estimated time 30 seconds, so that's about what I thought it was going to be. And then I'm going to click enhance. Okay, now that that process is done, let's take a look and zoom in to see the results. So clearly quite a bit of difference in the noise reduction. I'm going to hop over to the original one and you can see this is kind of before, this is after. That did a pretty phenomenal job with reducing the noise. Now if I just bring up the exposure a little bit, yeah, you can see that this is like a pretty clean photo at this point. Okay, now let's jump over to another bird image. I'll do this one quickly. Again, this is a dark image. I shot it from across the street, super grainy. So let's run the denoise filter on this one and see how it works out. We're gonna go ahead and check this out. Let's look at the preview real quick. Okay, it looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and enhance it. Okay, now this is wrapping up and let's take a look at it. I'm gonna go and bring up this exposure a bit. And that's like pretty incredible. Now I'm zoomed in quite a bit, so it's not super clear, but you can clearly see the difference in how much noise there was before. So here's the side by side of these two, and that's pretty incredible. There we go. Like that, that's crazy. That's so good. Okay, we're gonna do one more. This is gonna be the Milky Way photo, so let's jump over and take a look at that one. Okay, now the last one I want to do is this Milky Way shot. Now I've already done some edits on this picture, and this is something where I'm really focused on the sky, the foreground. Basically what I would normally do is stack this with a more clear foreground, but I do want to focus on the sky for this. So if I zoom in, obviously, boom, it's like full of noise. That was probably way too far. But let's just take a look at this now. This is the before, and then I'm going to run the denoise on this Milky Way shot and then see how it turns out. So this is showing the preview, the before, and the after. Obviously quite a bit of a difference. Now, while this Milky Way shot is running, I do want to hop over to Topaz Denoise. And what I did is I loaded in a picture of the robin. This is not a robin. And what I did here is I loaded that picture of the cardinal that we looked at before, and I ran it through a couple of different scenarios. This is the standard noise reduction. You've got clear, which you can see adds some kind of artifacts in the background. There's low light. Again, you've got some artifacts here. Severe noise does a pretty good job, but there's still some weird stuff kind of happening around the edges of things. Now that's updating here. So decent job, but again, I would say that this compared to the Lightroom is probably favoring the Lightroom. So I'm gonna actually export this. We'll put them side by side and take a look and see which one looks better. Okay, so I've got these two side by side. This is the one on the right is the one I exported from Lightroom, and the one on the left is the one I exported from Topaz Denoise AI. I think clearly this one looks better. And honestly, I probably even went a little too far. I could have slid that down from 100 to maybe like 70 or 80. But the point is that I think that it is definitely comparable to Topaz Denoise, if not better in certain situations. So now let's jump over and take a look at that Milky Way photo. All right, so there you have it. This is the original photo on the left. This is the updated one through the denoise filter. Honestly, that's really impressive. I mean, you definitely still have a little bit of artifacts here that have been created, but when you zoom out, I think this looks pretty good. Definitely compared to this original one. I mean, I just think that looks like pretty solid overall. So I have to say, I am pretty impressed with this Lightroom feature. So what's my overall take on this new product? Does this spell the end for products like Topaz Denoise? Well, I've got a couple of thoughts. First off, AI is kind of a controversial topic in general these days. But in this case, as long as it's helping to kind of make the process easier for photographers while still staying true to the original photograph itself, I think that's a win for photographers overall. And second, anytime I can stay in one place to do all my work, I think that just makes the entire process easier. Now that being said, products like Topaz still offer a lot of features that you're not going to see here in Lightroom. So Topaz has things like sliders, different options. You can selectively denoise just certain areas within a photo, whereas in Lightroom, you're just basically doing a global slider for the entire image. So at the end of the day, there are still additional features that you're going to find in other products that you're not getting in Lightroom. But I still see myself probably using this more often than not in Lightroom instead of hopping back and forth between multiple products. And if I don't have to pay for something else that I can get in Lightroom that I'm already paying for, it just makes sense to stay there. What about you? Do you see this new feature changing your process at all? Leave a comment, let me know how this is going to impact things when you're editing photos. And while you're at it, if you enjoyed this breakdown, give it a like to let me know. I want this channel to be useful for photographers, so if content like this is helpful, then let me know and I'll keep making more of it. Now, if you're new to photography and you want to learn more about improving your skills and your confidence, check out this video right here where I walk through 4 different ways to improve your photography as a beginner. I'll see you in the next video.